Welcome to the Equity Team Podcast, where we provide Sedona, Arizona real estate insight to help you thrive during your next real estate transaction.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Chad McMahon with the Equity Team and Sedona Investing. I am a short-term rental and investment specialized real estate agent in the Sedona, Arizona area. Today, I'm going to quickly talk about the deed restriction program, and I use air quotes because it's really not a program, all it is. So I'm going to take a baby step back here and just give the 101 on what's been happening. So the short version is that Arizona, the entire state, there's a law that's been in effect now for 7 years. And this law says that local municipalities such as cities, towns, counties, etc., they cannot restrict short-term rentals. And when they passed that law, Sedona went from a 30-day minimum rental town within Sedona city limits into, just like every other town and every other county within the state of Arizona, to allowing short-term rentals. Now, you need to understand, this is my blanket message here when it comes to restrictions. If there are short-term rentals, if there are CC&Rs, if there are codes, covenants, and restrictions that say no short-term rentals, then you can't do short-term rentals, with one exception, and that is that if the CC&Rs were illegally changed to restrict short-term rentals, well, then that's not a legal change. And that's something you should take up with your attorney or find an attorney and ask them if your CC&Rs, if they say no short-term rentals, find out if they're really truly binding and if they're legal, and consult in that way. That being said, we can, of course, help you and point you in the right direction of where in Sedona are you allowed to do short-term rentals? And there are plenty of places where you can. Now, that being said, the deed restriction program, really all it is the Sedona government is trying to find ways to reduce the percentage of short-term rentals, and legally they can't restrict it. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to encourage homeowners to voluntarily restrict their own deed that says irrevocably, by the way, which means that they can't change their mind and say, oops, I shouldn't have done that. Let me remove that restriction. It's a irrevocable 50-year restriction. And so they're trying to get homeowners to voluntarily restrict their own deeds that say no short-term rentals for any reason, anytime over the 50 years, doesn't matter who owns this property, but whether it's me or the next owner or the owner after that or 30 owners after that, if it's in the next 50 years, no one can run a short-term rental. And the problem I have with this, voluntary is good. It has to be voluntary. But the problem I have with it is that in an attempt to get people excited to restrict their own deeds, there's been some bad information that's been going out. So the marketing information that I received as a local before the first meeting to discuss deed restrictions, it said in that marketing material that short-term rentals hurt property values, and that by doing a deed restriction, you're actually going to increase the value of your property. Anybody who knows real estate, any real estate professional, and a lot of other people with just great common sense can tell you that that is just blatantly not true, that is a completely false statement about how property values actually work. Anyone can tell you that if you take away your options, you're going to lose value. If you have more options, you're going to have better value. It's just common sense. So if you restrict your own property saying no short-term rentals, and that means that one day when you go to sell that property, short-term rental buyers, and those are buyers that have a lot of money, they're really confident buyers, it's all about the math. Those buyers can't even look at your property. So you lose that whole buyer pool, and only the buyers that will either live there or run it as a long-term rental, which in our market right now is a money loser, okay? But only those buyers are gonna make sense. People that are gonna live there part-time, full-time, whatever, or people that wanna buy it as a long-term rental. Those are your buyers. So you lose out on that big money pool of the buyers that wants to buy it as an investment, as a short-term rental investment, and it's no longer an option. So of course you lose buyers with really a lot of money, cash buyers usually, well, at least sometimes you're losing out on all those buyers. So of course you're going to lose value. You're going to have less people that are going to be offering to purchase your place. And so you're not going to get as much for it. That's just common sense in the real estate market. So that's the problem I have with it. But the deed restriction program, as they're calling it, and it really kind of gets my craw to call it a program, but encouraging people to do that. I think people need to hear, pros and cons, and legitimate pros and cons, so that they can make up their minds on that. Now, that being said, I'm going to quickly share my screen. I just want to show that there are a few of these and kind of show you this kind of feeling that's floating around and how things are being phrased and how things are being positioned. So first of all, they're offering deed restrictions to prevent more short-term rentals. So if you really think about what this is, then you start to see this is pretty manipulative. Now, I know that part of it is it's how these articles are being written and papers get to choose, but it's also how it's being framed, locally. I want to show you this one. Aims to protect homes from becoming short-term rentals. It's pretty laughable and pretty silly after a while, once you really understand what's going on here. This one is almost talking about it like it's a plague, and you got to protect yourself. You got to do a deed restriction in order to protect yourself so you don't catch the bug. Like it's not your choice if your own property is going to be a short-term rental. So it's a bit silly. And then, of course, this was back in September, but as of that date, I don't know where we're at now. But as of that date, there weren't any takers. But that was also early on. And the city is making more and stronger efforts to encourage. So bottom line is just beware. It's always good advice for everyone to just always think through things. And before you do something like an irrevocable deed restriction on your property, just make sure that, talk with an attorney. Talk with your trusted real estate agent that understands investment values. Really dive into this thing and understand what the risks are, because it is irrevocable. And if you have an oops, I shouldn't have done that moment, tough. It's one of those things where you can't walk it back. So it's a pretty scary thing to do that. So I hope that helps to better understand the deed restriction stuff that's going on. As always, please reach out. Happy to consult, answer questions, and do whatever I can to help you. All right, good luck out there.
Thanks for tuning in to the Equity Team Podcast. To speak with one of our top agents, visit us at owninaz.com. That's owninaz.com. Or call us at 928-323-0031.